It's prepping it right now. Okay, and we are live. All right, guys. Hey, how's it going? And I can hear myself. That's awkward. My name's Romans. I'm the host of the show. This is Party Chat. I'm here with a good friend of mine from college, Adah Crow. And I'm here with my co-host as well, Big Daddy Yates, aka Digested Virus, for some of you that play Dark Souls. And today we're going to talk about psychology and gaming and some of the impacts that gaming has on the mind and positive and benefits behind it as well. So Adah, let's go and talk about yourself and introduce yourself to everyone, a little bit about your background, and just go with it.
So my name is Adah Crow, as Tom said. Oh, sorry, was I supposed to use your real name?
It's okay.
We go back, guys. I'm originally from Montana, but I live in Texas now. I actually work for Child Protective Services in Texas. My degree is in psychology. I have a bachelor's of science in psychology and a minor in criminal justice, which is how I met Tom. I have 4 kids of my own. I game, my husband games, and all of my children game.
That's awesome. So what type of games do you guys play?
Well, I like the older games. My favorite is Final Fantasy V. And we have a PlayStation. We actually have the entire PlayStation series.
You're my kind of people. You're my kind of people.
We're missing the 3rd one because we're having difficulty finding one that functions appropriately. But we have 1 and 2, 4 and 5, and they all work. 2 is my favorite. But aside from that, my kids, my twins are 5. They play a lot of Minecraft, and they just started playing Tasty Planet.
What's Tasty Planet?
It's super weird.
Really? Tell me. Okay, I got to know what this is because.
So it's like these little creatures, and you move them around to eat things, and as you eat things, you grow, and you can eat bigger things until you eventually eat the entire world.
That is pretty intense. I'm not gonna lie.
It takes so long to play.
Is it kind of dark at all? Because it sounds a little dark. Is it like a super kind of like a Mario kid game?
I definitely think it's both. My kids play the light versions. They like to watch the YouTube gameplay, where I can definitely see where it would be dark because it gets to the point where you eat people.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm not okay with that at this point.
Yeah.
My 10-year-old, he likes to play Fortnite and Minecraft.
Okay.
Yes, he plays a lot of Fortnite. I have no idea what I'm doing, so he doesn't ask me to play anymore. My 18-year-old plays a lot of Dark Souls.
Dark Souls.
That's what I play. There you go.
Probably played with him. He's played all of them, and he's beaten the Dark Souls and Demon Souls.
Oh wow. Okay.
Wow.
That's like my favorite series.
Dude,
so that's awesome.
He must have grown. Yeah, he must have grown quite a bit since the last time I saw him.
Okay, well, that was Carson. That was my 10-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like 5. The 18-year-old is my little brother. My husband.
Okay, gotcha. I understand.
My husband and I have custody of him.
Gotcha.
But he's a big gamer, and then of course my husband is a big gamer. He plays the Horizon game. I don't know the exact name.
Was it Forza Horizon? Is it a racing game?
No. It's RPG.
Oh, Horizon Zero Dawn.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I heard that was really good. I haven't played it yet though.
It's really interesting. I like watching him play it. The only game that I ever play is Final Fantasy V, and it's on my phone.
Okay. Yeah. Dude, it's kind of crazy how far technology has come too, because now we have so much more access to games, like, because when me and you, well, actually all three of us, when all three of us were growing up, it was so different. The highest quality game I could get on my phone was like a really, really crappy version of Mortal Kombat or something like that,
Snake, playing Snake.
Yeah, there you go.
My phone was always like a generation behind, so I never got to play those games. So.
That is true. He had a flip phone. Do you still have a flip phone, Austin?
No,
Okay.
I finally updated. I do have like a Android phone now, so
Moving up in the world.
Yeah, right. So it seems like everyone in the family is a gamer. Everyone's into games. So I'm kind of curious, especially since it's a part of your life. How does the knowledge you have now, like especially going through school, learning about psychology and mental health and everything, has that changed or influenced your perspective at all in regard to games and how they should be played?
Actually it has, because children learn best through modeling. And I've always been a big proponent that children are our future. And the way that our brain works, the more that you use certain neurons, so I'm over here like showing you in my brain, like you can see, but the more that you use those neuronal pathways, the more they strengthen. So the quicker you are to recall that.
Okay.
So like with Minecraft, I don't know the controls for Minecraft. All of my kids do.
Okay.
And so because they play it constantly, they're quicker to recall it. Now, the negative side of that is if they were to begin playing GTA, they would learn from the negative behavior that is in GTA because you become desensitized to it. And one of the things I try to do, like what we were talking about with Tasty Planet and eating people, is I try to avoid exposing my children to violence.
Okay.
Because even though studies have shown that it does not increase violence or aggressive behavior, it does increase the amount of, why can't I think of that word right now? It increases your adrenal cortex, like you use your adrenal cortex more.
Okay.
And so you're experiencing more cortisol release. So you're stressed more. You're constantly in that fight or flight. Plus, on top of that, you can develop gaming addiction because it also releases those dopamines. Whenever you hit those checkpoints, whenever you get that kill, whenever you reach a goal in the game, you release the dopamine, which is the feel-good hormone.
Yeah.
And you become addicted to that. So it's akin to a gambling addiction.
What's really interesting, you just saying that, it kind of makes me think of my childhood. And I remember still to this day, one of my favorite games that I ever played was GoldenEye. That was like the game it's a story, and I could play that game like 20 times in a row. Now that I think about it, that's interesting. Yeah.
Along that same line, because you did play it 20 times in a row, and I'm just as guilty. I can't tell you how many times that I've played Final Fantasy V, and I continue to play it.
Yeah.
Is that you have to be careful not to lose yourself in reality. Or in the non-reality. You need to maintain reality. There, I said it right that time.
Yeah.
Especially with virtual reality and the progress that gaming has made. It is so easy to just put on those, I can't talk, you already know that. It's just so easy to put on your VR goggles and go on and do your stuff, but what's going on in the real world?
Even
How?
headsets. Yeah, like these headsets,
hmm
Hmm.
Oh, trust me, I know about them headsets. My 10-year-old, he'll be in there playing Fortnite, and I'm like, Carson, do the dishes.
Yeah.
Carson, do the dishes. What? Do the dishes. I
Oh
can't
my
hear
gosh.
you. The whole thing.
What a trip.
But you have to be careful because the addiction part
Hmm.
of, like, where you become addicted to the dopamine release, along with the constant cortisol release,
Yeah.
along with the loss of reality,
Hmm.
all of that combined can cause so many problems with your mental health, because as I stated earlier, the more you use those neuronal pathways, the
Yeah.
stronger they get. And so if something happens in the real world that is even similar to something that you have experienced in a video game, you're going to react the way that you would in a video game.
Okay. So with that in mind, and talking about like kids and stuff, what are your thoughts on the side of, kids and gaming? I know you kind of talked about how you're careful about what they play and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
I know it might have been the same with you growing up, but like for me, um, and I know like no one person's the same, but I remember I'll never really forget this. There was one time, and mom, if you're watching, you're a great mom. But there was one time,
Your mom is a
I,
great mom. She's
yeah,
very sweet.
she is a very awesome mom. But I remember I was like probably I was probably like 9 or 10, and we went to Toys R Us, maybe younger, I don't know, and we went there and we got Turok. I don't know if any of you guys remember Turok,
I
but
remember that game.
that was probably the most, still to this day, one of the goriest, most brutal games I've ever seen in my entire life. And like I look back, and it's like you already said, just because you play a violent game doesn't mean you're going to be violent. Like I don't, me, like I'll get violent if I absolutely have to, but I don't like it. That's not my thing.
Mhm.
But I kind of think on that, and I'm like, okay, well, I didn't turn out bad. I'm not like going around like tearing people apart. So what are your kind of thoughts on that?
So in development, it's important to remember that everybody has the genetic capability to develop a certain type of personality. And it's during key points during early childhood development that turns on or off those genetic components, like
Okay.
that MAOI gene.
Oh yeah,
The
I remember that. That's like the murder gene,
Yep,
right? Or
the
something like that.
serial killer gene.
Yeah.
So in order for a person to grow up and become a serial killer, that gene has to be turned on at a certain number, that there are things that counteract that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like if you have, like, you can develop one single trauma, one horrific trauma. You were in a car accident, your parents died. It may have triggered that MAOI gene.
Okay.
But throughout your life, you experienced good experiences. And the great things about your genetics is that they change in your environment.
Okay.
And so, even though it was turned on, it has the potential to be turned back off through good experiences. So, if
That's
we,
interesting.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it's something that I look at in my work. Sorry, guys, this is a side note. Like, it's something I look
Yeah.
at in my work a lot because I do work for Child Protective
Yeah,
Service.
for sure.
And I'm like, you are not your trauma. We have the ability to change. But that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
um, but it's something that's always fascinated me, because even if we do have that capability, even if we do experience that trauma, even if we are exposed to the modeling in the video games, it does not mean that that's who we are. We
Hmm.
have children who have great perseverance, who just, what is this word I'm looking for? I'll think of
Oh,
it.
like they overcame.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. I just
I
can't
got
think
you.
of
I got you.
I appreciate you. I just can't think of like the word for it. It's been a long day. I worked 13 hours today,
Oh
guys.
my gosh. Well, I appreciate you being here.
I forgot. So,
It's all good.
but it's amazing what children are capable of, and even adults. I mean,
Mhm.
we're always changing, we're always growing, and our neuronal pathways, it's like when we dream.
Yeah.
Our brain is going through and determining what we're still using and what we're not.
Mhm.
And it gets rid of the things that we don't. It's like it
Yeah.
weeds out the stuff we don't need. And it's fascinating. I love it. I should have grown up and be a neuroscientist.
that would be pretty awesome. But so with that in mind, talking about with the way, the mind works and everything. Well, first off, it's really cool that, you're never really, I guess, well, you might say, well, maybe when you're older, you're set in stone. I'm not sure, but, at least as far as like someone who's younger, you're not really set in stone. And this kind of like takes me to my next question for you in regard to like mental health and stuff. Do you think, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, but do you think that gaming is a major contributor or contributor really at all to the mental health crisis, especially in America?
I would say that during the pandemic, yes,
Okay. Okay.
because people are using it as a means of escaping the reality. And to be able to cope with your reality, to be able to process things, you have to allow yourself to feel things.
Yeah.
And so if you're escaping and losing touch with reality through the video games, then you are increasing that depression. Because if you think about it, and I'm specifically talking about depression and anxiety right now.
Yeah.
Depression and anxiety both are based off of the adrenal cortex and the cortisol release. I mean, there's serotonin and dopamine and other things that play as well. But whenever you're in that constant fight or flight mode, you're more anxious. You're more likely to be depressed because you're more anxious, because you're constantly worrying about what's going wrong.
Yeah.
As far as losing touch with reality, you don't know who your friends are anymore.
Mm-hmm.
What connection do you have to the real world? I mean, and I do want to say that I don't have a PhD. I have done studies, but I mean, like they were in school. I haven't done anything recently.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
you have way more knowledge on this than I do. So, this is great. This is really good.
but I do think that it's really dependent on the person and whether they have the ability to, like, whether they're predisposed to addictions.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
some people are predisposed to that loss of reality with the schizoid personality traits.
Mm-hmm.
You also have the individuals who are more prone to anxiety and depression. And so that's something you need to take into account whenever you utilize gaming as your coping mechanism. And I'm a huge fan of coping mechanisms. I really am.
Yeah.
But it's learning how to manage them appropriately and determine what coping mechanisms work best for you. It's like drug addicts.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's their coping mechanism. Is it a healthy coping mechanism? No, you probably don't need to snort cocaine every day.
Yeah.
But with gaming, I do believe that it can be used appropriately. Cocaine I don't think that can be used appropriately. So please don't anybody.
Yeah. Don't anyone
Don't anybody
misconstrue that.
misquote me.
Drugs are
Don't do
bad.
dare
Don't do
don't do
drugs.
drugs.
So with that in mind, on the more positive side of things and, using it as a like a good form of coping.
Mhm.
Like what are your views on that? You know, what are some, I guess, healthy boundaries people can have with it?
Well, I think that it is important to still ground yourself in reality,
Mhm.
but it is a good stress relief. One of my favorite things to do is like, especially after a 13-hour day,
Yeah.
is lay in bed with my heating pad and my cat and my dog and play my game.
Aw, that's awesome.
And I'm telling you, I'm an old lady, but I mean, it's a way to get my mind off of all of the stress that I deal with at work. And I believe that you can do that and you can use it appropriately to do that.
Sorry, my dogs are acting crazy. um, oh, Scout. Yeah, Scout's a
I
good
miss your
boy.
dog more than I miss you.
Dude, that's pretty much what everyone says. Um, so in
Love
regard to all this though, and you know, proper use and stuff with coping mechanisms, you know, you talked about grounding ourselves in reality. What are some warning signs you'd probably say to look out for, especially for like anyone who's a parent watching? Because I know, like, even for me, you know, like if I have kids in the near future, which would be awesome, you know, some like in the near, you know, but you know, it's kind of good to know, like, okay, this is getting a little out of hand, you know, or
Mhm.
like, okay, let's, you know, then let's see, or like on the other side, it's like, okay, you know, you're doing good. You know, I don't need to worry about you. You're good in your space right now, you know?
I think it's important to manage the time they spend on it.
Okay.
With Carson, I can definitely tell, that's my 10-year-old, when he has had too
Yeah.
much screen time, too much gaming, because he becomes irritable. So do the twins. They don't want to sleep, especially Carson. He will be laying in bed with little bloodshot eyes,
Oh my gosh.
bags under his eyes, and he's just like, just one more game. Just one more.
It's always just one more. Honestly, if someone hasn't made a shirt that says just one more on it, they should probably do that now.
Yeah, but we'll have to trademark it.
Yeah, right.
But it's important to look for that because that's a sign of losing reality when you're
Mhm.
so stuck in it that you cannot function otherwise.
Yeah.
You are losing touch with reality.
Or if you can't break free from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
like sleep is important. Put it down.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. So, um, on that note, with warning and signs and everything, when it comes to children, what about different age ranges? Because, you know, obviously, you know, an 18-year-old could probably handle a different amount than, you know, a 4 or 5-year-old or something, you know?
Okay, so this is actually great because I have 5-year-olds, a 10-year-old, and an 18-year-old.
Yeah, there you go. That's why you're
Um,
perfect for this.
my 5-year-olds, so they normally get their tablets after school up until dinner time.
Okay.
So, but we do have homework, so we have to do homework.
Hmm.
So they normally get it between 4 and 4:30 until about 6. And they're not, I would like to point out they're not gaming the entire time.
Yeah,
Probably 90% of that is watching YouTube, watching
of
other people
course.
play games.
Okay, right? It's crazy. Like when me and you
I
grew
don't know
up,
why they do that.
see it, yeah, okay, we'll get to that in a bit. But continue.
But they have a very limited amount of time. As far as Carson, he has to clean his room. He has to have his homework done. And then he can play his Switch, like play as much Fortnite or as much Minecraft until dinner time. And then at dinner time, you have to eat, take a bath, do all your hygiene
Yeah.
stuff, get ready for bed. And then his bedtime is at 9. So
Okay.
if he finishes everything, then he can play until 9. So he normally spends probably about 2 to 3 hours a day on it. But again, it's not just gaming,
Yeah.
because he's one of those kids who likes to call their friends to like, they pause their game because they play together,
Yeah.
talk about what they're playing, and then resume.
That's awesome. I remember those days. um, it's interesting how you kind of like break them up like that, and it's cool how it's almost like a job. Like you do your job and you get rewarded, right? You
Mhm.
know, yeah. I think that's pretty slick there, mom. um, so now talking about like communities and stuff like that, because we just kind of touched on um your kids watching other games. Obviously there's like a massive massive communities within the gaming industry. You look at some of these big name streamers, and they got 3 or 4 million people following them, some of them even more than that. So
Mhm.
what do you think about these communities, and do you think they're like, you know uh, do you think they can be healthy, for kids, especially ones that really struggle socially?
So I have very mixed feelings about this, and I'm not going to say names,
Hmm.
but mainly because I cannot stand the way some of these people talk.
I know, right? Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
the worst. I'll be like, Carson, turn it off. I cannot.
Hmm.
But as far as the walkthroughs, that helps a lot. Now,
Okay.
I don't let my kids comment on YouTube. That is
Smart.
completely that's disabled for them, because I am not a proponent of bullying, and I see bullying in my job and personal life all the time. I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
going to let my kids be subjected to that if I can help it.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as like communities with their friends, like with Carson, it's great. Him and his friends will, like I said, they stop what they're doing, they call each other, they talk about it, they resume, stop, call each other, talk about it, resume. They play together all the time. And it encourages those friendships. And his friends who have moved far away, that's the only way he gets to see them, unless,
Yeah.
we make those trips across Texas to go see them. And so I think that it can be helpful. But as far as like the YouTubers,
Hmm.
the only thing that I personally see beneficial is the walkthroughs,
Okay.
because there's a lot of negativity in those. And I've,
Yeah.
I've I've had to cut them off in the middle of it.
Yeah, I definitely get that. As a matter of fact, I was telling when I first started doing this, I was telling my girlfriend, when I first started looking into streaming, and I was like, okay, let's see what's out there. I want to see like, what do people like? Um, I noticed that the character quality of some of these people are very poor.
Yeah.
And that was something I was hoping to do with my channel, because as someone who grew up, as someone who lived, you know, um, I had really, really bad like social anxiety when I was a kid. I had like issues with depression, and I just had a really hard time making friends. Even like my people, I guess you could say, are like my, best friends. Um, I even struggled maintaining relationships with them because I had like issues with like lashing out.
Mhm.
So what I ended up doing is I would lock myself in my room and I'd play my games. And soon the people that were in those games were the people I would go to, for help and like comfort. And reflecting back, I realized I was like, man, those are some really crappy friends. But like now we're in like a new age of things. I always thought, all right, I thought now it's like, well, how do you reach those people who are in my shoes that, where I was, who are isolated in their rooms, who are trying to escape from their family issues and their issues with
Mhm.
like not having friends. Um,
So one of and this is from a psychology point of view.
yeah, yeah.
One of the things that I would look at it as is like, I would ask them, what are you getting from that?
Mhm.
Is there a way that we can meet that need outside of that game?
Yeah.
The second thing would really be is, it seems, and no offense, Tom, it seems as
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you were using that as a drug. You were altering your environment.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And so again, how do we meet that need? What do we do to address that need to create better behaviors? Because, and this is my CPS caseworker,
Yeah.
but we want long-term positive behavioral changes.
Hmm.
And so we need to look at, and we need to see what's causing those problems with those kids.
Absolutely.
Why
Yeah.
are they anxious? Why do they feel the need to hide? I mean, there's so much that can go into that, and I could probably talk for hours about that. But
Yeah.
you know, you especially, because all my arguing in class, I've always believed that you have to address the root cause of
Yeah.
things to get
Yeah.
to the result.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like ultimately at the end of the day, like what's really helpful, for kids or anyone who struggles is it's not going to be to spend your entire day in front of a game, or spend your entire day in watching someone else play a game. I think having that community outside is super important. Which, that's something, I guess, that I have a question for you from your perspective. Like for someone who's in my position, who's trying to, reach out to like more isolated people. What is something that I can do from my current position to help encourage other people to go out and like, even if it's not like head in a computer, how can I make that connection or present it to them, even though I can't be there physically?
So humans want connection. That's part of the reason why, we're so drawn to the gaming communities, even
Yeah.
if it's not the best quality. And it's very difficult to find good quality people. And that sounds bad, but
It's true.
there's a lack of empathetic, kind people within this world. And you see it all the time. And I think that one of the things we need to do to encourage those who use gaming as an escape is, this is really hard for me, I'm not going to lie, because for me, I would build that relationship with them. I'd be like, hey, I care about you. I mean, and I do to them just like I did to you. I bullied you into being my friend.
I don't know if you bullied me. I mean, it was good.
I like how you're like, oh, she kind of did.
I was like, well, now I think about it, we did somehow just magically team up for a debate. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, you.
I did approach
me
you.
to that.
I did approach you. Yeah. Okay.
I
So
was
really, have you ever thought that I secretly
off
bullied
topic.
you? I secretly bullied you.
Oh, okay. So it was reverse psychology. Really, it
Wait,
was
were you
me.
guys in like a debate class or something? Or
Us-
what?
No,
it
we were
was
in the worst class ever.
it was was it criminology?
Criminalization.
Yeah,
Hold on. No, crime and criminals is
crime
what
and
it was.
criminals. And
And
we were told at the start of the semester that we had to do a debate.
Mm.
And I saw her confidence and I instantly knew. I was like, that's good confidence. I need that on the team. And then we
Okay.
saw our buddy Sean, and he was really, really articulate. And I was like, that's a really, really smart sounding guy. I need him on the team.
okay, but to be fair, the first day of class, Tom was like over there sitting by himself. And I'm, if you can't tell, a very outgoing person. So I was like, can I sit by you? I want to be your friend. And he was like, I guess.
I was probably
Oh
like,
my gosh.
yeah, sure, whatever. I don't even remember.
And
I
then it just went
guess
from
so.
there.
Yeah, I just went from there. Man. Okay, so kind of getting back on track here. One
Did
thing
you
that
win the debate at least?
Oh, we killed. Wait, did we win that?
No. Okay. So
How do we not win that?
So the only reason we didn't win because we should have won. We technically got more points. Like per the teacher we won,
Yeah.
but per class vote we lost.
Dude, that's right. Because the teacher came up to us and was like, you guys should have won that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
But
I got us off on track again.
okay, we have to get off that. I'm upset about this still. This was years
I had
ago.
to know though.
Yeah, it's just it was basically a popularity vote. That's all it was.
Oh, it really was. It was does poverty cause crime?
Yeah.
Which it doesn't. I mean,
yeah.
But that's another
that is a whole different talk show right there. Okay, back to the topic at hand though. And Big Daddy, if you got any questions, feel free to jump in. But
yeah, I actually have a few questions.
Okay.
So as somebody like that has personally sort of struggled with like ADD like my entire life, so I kind of wanted to ask this question, which is, does gaming have any negative effects on people who suffer from ADHD and ADD? And if so, like what are those negative effects?
So my son is ADHD and so is my husband. And I see it more with my 10-year-old, is the impulsivity, because with ADD, ADHD, you have that lack of impulse control, and Carson gets absolutely furious when he loses because he's just like, punch that button, punch that button, punch it. And I'm like, you got to think it through. And that's one of the things we're working on actively with him is, thinking things through. And I know that's what people with ADHD struggle with, is that impulsivity control. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that basically answered my question. I think I might have at least one other question. I think we kind of touched upon this, but like, I guess like one of the things that I've kind of noticed about online gaming in general is that like there's kind of this huge toxic side to it, in the way that people act. And this is especially like prevalent in online games in which you can have you can chat with like strangers via either like some type of voice chat or like some type of messaging system. I was kind of wondering, like, what are the psychological reasons that people tend to behave in a more like toxic way to other people online versus like how they actually would probably respond in a face-to-face manner with people in real life, if that makes sense?
It's the anonymity. Because nobody that you're playing with knows you in real life. So nothing is at stake. Your reputation, who you are, who you're perceived as, your station, none of that is at stake. And it's funny you mentioned like the ones you can chat with, because I immediately think of Roblox and WoW and all of the issues that stem from that, with the grooming and the sex trafficking and the harassment and the things that come from that. And there's this phenomena within psychology. So if one person doesn't do something, then everybody else accepts that it's okay to not do something. And it works the same way, opposite. So if one person does something, everybody else accepts that it's okay to do it. So if you're harassing somebody, it's the group think. You're being ugly to people. They think it's okay to do the same. And again, they're anonymous online. Nobody knows them. It doesn't affect them in the real world. So why do they care?
So like bad behavior is basically normalized a lot of times in online circles. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think another question I had was like, what do you think are the most like addictive types of games in terms of like genre and stuff?
That's difficult for me because me and my family kind of like lean towards RPGs.
Mhm.
But I know that's not generally the case in my experience with people. I honestly really think that it's the ones that have the higher reward systems, like, and this is cliche, but like Mortal Kombat,
Mhm.
like whenever you get the KO and then it's like this big celebration, you get that dopamine release.
Mhm. Mhm.
With Call of Duty, with Dark Souls, like where you have that constant reward system, those can be more addicting. I mean, and like, yes, with the RPGs, you do have the reward systems, but gosh, you got to work for them.
And Call of Duty, I will say, in recent years has drastically upped their game on the reward system. Like when I was playing it when I was a kid, like you leveled up, okay. But now it's like, oh, you got this much on the battle pass. Oh, you gained this many points this season. Maybe next season you can buy it, and it's like it all just like stacks up and it's like, oh, a new map is coming out, or whatever, or here's double XP
Fortnite's the
this
same.
weekend. Yeah.
Fortnite's the same. And we deal with that with Fortnite a lot with Carson.
Yeah, Fortnite seems like it's really addictive.
Yeah.
Luckily, I've never gotten into it, so
Yeah, neither have I, but I mean,
Mm.
I got Warzone, so I'm not that much better off. So, um, so kind of like going on, you talked about like the addictive, we he brought up the most addictive style of game. What about consoles, especially with like families? Do you think like okay, say you're thinking about getting a game system, you want to figure out what like the best way to kind of introduce this in your family is. We got the piece, we have PCs, we have our, Xbox and PlayStations, we have our, iPads and all that stuff and just like cell phones. What do you think is like the worst out of all of them? And what do you think is probably like the most reasonable?
So I want to ask you a question in response to your question.
Oh boy, here we go.
What do you have the most access to?
Oh, my phone for sure. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So what is your answer?
I would probably say phone is the worst for sure. I would probably, if I were to do this myself, if I were to answer this question from my perspective, I would say probably phones, tablets, and then consoles. And I think PC is probably the healthiest just because it's like, actually, no, that's debatable because, you could get on there for your homework and literally just flip a switch and go straight to a game. So I don't know,
I think it's interesting because I think the phone gets kind of overlooked because, like, if you're like a hardcore gamer, you don't think about the phone as being like a gaming device, but it really is.
That's
'Cause
the
most
only
people
thing
play.
I game on. I mean, I rarely play my PlayStation 2, but I play Final Fantasy 5 on my phone a lot. And if you think about it,
Oh, yeah.
think of all of the apps. Think of like Farm Story. Is that what it is? Candy Crush.
Oh, Candy Crush, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many Tasty Planets on tablets.
Yeah.
There's so many things on these easily accessible devices that you can carry around with you. As far as PCs, I cannot say because I haven't played on a PC since it was like 8 years boot up on freaking the little Ethernet cord. I have no way to speak on that.
Okay, gotcha.
But I do think that consoles would be the healthiest and not Switches or DSs because those are easily accessible as well. You can carry those around. I think the things you can carry around are probably the worst because they're more readily accessible.
Mm.
Okay. I could get that. Yeah, because with our phones, we're literally on our phones pretty much all day. I'm sure, most people to spend What is the national average, Austin? Do you want to look that up real quick? I'm just curious while we go on to our next question.
Wait, sorry, what did you want me to look up?
Look up the national average for time spent on phones.
Okay.
Okay, so last question of the night. As you know, like I'm a Christian streamer, so I try to keep things like chill. But so how can like the Christian community be a more positive impact and deal with things appropriately and in a better way for especially for the youth that do have like this the bad side of the coping mechanism for gaming, right? Like how can we do a better job of addressing that? Because I know like there's some extreme sides of Christianity where they'll say, oh, video games are the worst thing in the world, never play them, never touch them, like, oh, if you do that, you're gonna just kill your life away, but so I'm kind of curious if you have any advice for any Christians out there, or like from your perspective, what you think we can do better as a community.
So, first of all, Tom, and I know I've told you this and Sean before, it's like I really credit you two and then Caroline, my son's stepmom, and my boss for, leading me to where I am now. So thank you for that. I love you for that.
Love you too.
But, whenever you sent me that question yesterday, like I was really thinking about it because I didn't have an answer, but I do see the negative effects of it a lot. And I think that's something I'll have to do more research on. But I think that it goes back to utilizing healthy coping mechanisms and not alienating those who do game. Because a lot of the time in the Christian community, people are alienated, and that's what turns them off from Christianity. I mean, we had this conversation.
Yeah.
So I think that it's just, being more open-minded and being more willing to be accepting of those who don't necessarily have healthy coping mechanisms, but encourage them to develop healthy coping mechanisms.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think it's important for, the Christian community to recognize that this is a thing. It's not going to go anywhere. It's actually going to get worse. I mean, realistically, if we're being honest, and it's, we have to step out of that area of alienating these people or considering these people lost causes. Oh, they're just doing their thing. Let them be, or like, oh, they're going to waste their life away. Forget them. And maybe, or definitely we need to step more into a light of, okay, like how can I reach out to this person? And, like you said, introduce healthier coping mechanisms, or even like try to participate and have healthy conversations to dig and ask the questions of why things are the way they are. I think you're right on so many things you talked about tonight.
We have to meet people where they are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And before we end the show tonight, Austin, did you find out that national average? I'm curious.
People spend on average, or Americans at least, about 5.4 hours a day.
That's ridiculous.
On the phone? Oh, I probably spend more, guys. I promise you.
Well, I mean, I can understand. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm above that. Like, I definitely spend at least that, but I just think like for a national average, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy to think about.
Look, out of the 13 hours that I worked today, all 13 of those were spent using either my work phone or my personal phone.
Dang. Okay.
I mean, I was also using my computer, but it's like, but also the type of work I do. Yeah.
I mean, you need it, so.
I mean, you can have it.
I don't want it. We're talking about the responsibility, right?
Yes, the responsibility. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Well, Adah, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you spending the time out of your day. I know you had a long work day. We're going to go and wrap this up. For all you guys watching, thank you so much for tuning in. Big Daddy, I'm sure he was monitoring the questions. If you have any comments or questions, After we close this, please write them down in the comments and we'll get back to you with them. We appreciate all of you guys and thank you so much. And Adah, seriously, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so glad I got to see you.
Yeah, me too. It was fun. And Big Daddy, thank you as always. Best mod in the world right there.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It was really
Bye,
great.
guys.
Yeah. But anyway, you guys have a good night and do me a favor and do good and be good.